Ethan Carter had always believed that life was full of small, quiet moments that mattered more than grand gestures. Working as an engineer on Xylaris, a bustling orbital city where humans and aliens coexisted, he spent his days repairing energy conduits, calibrating communication arrays, and ensuring the city's delicate systems ran smoothly. Life aboard Xylaris was not without its dangers. Meteoroid showers, energy fluctuations, and rare technical malfunctions kept the residents on alert. Still, Ethan had never imagined that today would test him in ways that no training or preparation could ever anticipate. The day had started like any other, with the hum of engines and the glow of solar panels reflecting against the city's polished glass structures. Ethan was on his way to inspect the energy core, a massive fusion reactor that powered the orbital city, when the first tremor struck. It was subtle at first, a vibration that traveled through the floors and walls of the station, barely noticeable over the usual mechanical noises. But then it grew stronger, shaking loose panels and sending loose tools clattering across the maintenance corridors. Alarms rang throughout the city, a discordant warning that something was seriously wrong. Ethan sprinted toward the control hub near the core, his boots echoing against the metallic floors. As he rounded a corner, he saw a panel flashing red, warning of an imminent energy overload. His mind raced, calculating the failure points and the risk to the city. Before he could react further, a secondary tremor struck. The ceiling above the main conduit collapsed in sections, sending sparks and falling debris toward the open floor below. People screamed and scattered, their voices merging into a chaotic symphony of fear. Amid the chaos, his attention was drawn to a figure caught in the danger zone. Princess Liara. Liara was a young alien royal from a distant system, her species known for their telepathic abilities and graceful, luminous appearance. She had been visiting Xylaris to strengthen interstellar relations, and today, she was touring the energy core with her aides. Ethan had met her briefly during previous diplomatic events, but he hardly knew her personally. Yet in that instant, as debris fell around her, her wide eyes locked onto his, pleading silently for help. Without thinking, he launched himself toward her. Time seemed to slow as he reached her side. He grabbed her arm just as a large panel dislodged by the tremor hurtled toward them. With a surge of strength born from adrenaline and instinct, Ethan pushed her out of the path, taking the full impact himself. Pain exploded through his body, sharp and searing, but he didn't falter. Protecting her, shielding her from harm, was the only thought that mattered. The panel crashed to the floor, splintering into harmless shards around them. Ethan groaned, his body aching from the impact, but he forced himself to remain upright. He could feel the heat of the reactor core nearby, energy levels dangerously spiking. A second later, a blinding flash enveloped the room as the reactor emitted a burst of energy, knocking everyone off balance. Ethan instinctively wrapped his arms around Liara, using his body as a shield against the sudden surge of force. The explosion's shockwave slammed into him with the weight of a collapsing star, and the world spun into darkness. For a brief, suspended moment, he felt the warmth of Liara against him, her presence almost tangible through the chaos. Then everything went black. When he awoke, he was no longer in the familiar corridors of Xylaris. The cold metallic floors, the hum of machinery, the distant voices of the panicked residents all had vanished. Instead, he found himself lying on a soft surface, bathed in a gentle ambient glow that seemed to radiate from the very walls of the chamber. The air was warm and fragrant, carrying an unfamiliar but calming scent. As his eyes adjusted, he realized he was surrounded by figures unlike any he had ever seen. They were tall and slender, their skin shimmering with a pearlescent glow. Their eyes reflected light in colors he couldn't name, and they moved with a grace that was almost hypnotic. For a moment, Ethan's mind struggled to make sense of what had happened. Had the explosion somehow transported him somewhere else? Were these beings real, or was he dreaming? As questions flooded his mind, he felt a presence beside him. Liara. She looked as if she had appeared from the air itself, her luminous form glowing softly in the room. Through the faint link of telepathy she possessed, Ethan suddenly understood her words without hearing them aloud. "You are safe," she said, her voice echoing in his mind. "They have brought us here to protect you." Ethan sat up slowly, his body still stiff from the explosion's impact. Who are they?" he asked aloud, though his voice sounded strange in the serene silence of the chamber. Liara stepped closer, her gaze reassuring. "They are the guardians of the Celestial Haven," she explained. "An ancient sanctuary designed to preserve those who show extraordinary courage. The explosion, it triggered their protocol. The beings observed him carefully, their movements calm and deliberate. One of them approached and extended a hand, not in threat but in an invitation. Ethan hesitated, then reached out, feeling a subtle vibration of energy pulse through him as he made contact. The alien being's touch was cool and smooth, almost liquid, yet comforting. It was as if they were assessing him, not judging, but trying to understand the human spark that had led him to risk his life. As he regained his bearings, Ethan noticed the chamber's walls were covered with strange symbols that shifted subtly as he looked at them. Light danced across the surfaces, forming patterns that seemed to tell a story he could almost grasp but not fully comprehend. Liara's telepathic voice guided him. "This place is older than most civilizations," she said. "It is beyond time in many ways. They can sense character, courage, and intent. That is why you are here, Ethan. You are alive because you acted without hesitation to protect another." Ethan's chest tightened at her words. He had never thought of himself as brave. He had simply done what anyone else would have done in the moment. Yet here he was, alive in a place beyond comprehension, surrounded by beings who saw value in his instinctive action. The thought was humbling and surreal all at once. He realized that this was no ordinary survival. He had been chosen in some way for something greater. Over the next few hours, he explored the chamber under the guidance of the alien figures. They showed him spaces filled with crystalline structures that glowed from within, pools of liquid light that reflected his image in surreal ways, and corridors that seemed to stretch and bend beyond conventional geometry. Everything was designed to evoke calm and reflection. Ethan discovered that the sanctuary was not just a physical place, but a living repository of knowledge and history, preserving civilizations long forgotten. Liara stayed by his side throughout, her presence grounding him. She explained the subtle ways the sanctuary communicated with them, colors shifting to indicate safety, vibrations signaling attention, and telepathic impressions of emotions rather than words. Ethan marveled at the alien intelligence, feeling both small and privileged. "I never imagined there could be so much understanding, so much harmony," he admitted quietly. "It's incredible." Liara smiled, her eyes reflecting the ambient glow. "You see it because you are human. Humans feel, act, and adapt in ways even the oldest civilizations sometimes forget. That is why you were saved, Ethan. That is why you are here." As the hours passed, Ethan began to sense a rhythm to the sanctuary. The beings moved in patterns that suggested thought as much as action, and the space itself seemed aware of his presence. He felt no fear, only a growing curiosity and respect. He began to understand that his journey had only just begun. Saving Liara was not the end. It was the spark that had led him to something extraordinary. By the time he finally rested, Ethan knew that he could not remain idle. Whatever awaited him here, he had to learn, adapt, and rise to the challenges that would come. The sanctuary was testing him, shaping him, and he realized that every instinct, every decision he had made in life, had prepared him for this moment. Lying back against the soft surface of the chamber, he looked at Liara, who seemed almost serene despite the recent chaos. "We're going to face this together," she said through their telepathic link. Ethan nodded, a mixture of determination and wonder settling in his chest. He didn't know what the sanctuary had planned or how long he would remain here, but one thing was clear. He had survived the explosion not by chance, but by choice, and that choice had brought him to a place beyond imagination, where courage and humanity would be tested in ways he could barely foresee. As the ambient light dimmed to a gentle glow signaling rest, Ethan closed his eyes, feeling a strange calm. Tomorrow he would begin the trials of the celestial haven. For now, he allowed himself a moment of reflection, thinking of the explosion, the city, and the life he had risked to protect another. It was a simple thought, yet profound. Courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it. And in this sanctuary, that courage would shape not just his destiny, but perhaps the future of both humans and aliens alike. Ethan woke to a soft shimmering light that filled the chamber, the gentle glow warming his skin and guiding his senses. The unfamiliar environment that had seemed so strange the day before now felt less intimidating, though it remained utterly alien. The walls pulsed with quiet energy, casting patterns that shifted like living constellations. Ethan slowly rose, stretching his stiff limbs, and felt the presence of Princess Liara beside him. Her form glowed softly, as if she were part of the ambient light itself, and she moved with grace, her eyes reflecting a mixture of concern and curiosity. "Good morning," she said in his mind, her telepathic voice calm and melodic. Ethan blinked, realizing he had already begun to understand her thoughts without words. "Good morning," he replied aloud, his voice echoing strangely in the serene chamber. "Did they—" He hesitated, unsure of what to call the beings surrounding them. "Did they mean to protect me? Or is this some kind of trial?" Liara smiled faintly. "Both," she said. "The Celestial Haven only intervenes when someone demonstrates qualities beyond the ordinary. Courage, selflessness, quick thinking. It senses potential. It recognizes what humans sometimes fail to see in themselves." Ethan absorbed her words. He had always considered himself practical, cautious, and sometimes overly analytical. Courage to him was instinctual and situational, not something remarkable. And yet here he was, having risked his life without hesitation, being evaluated by a civilization whose knowledge and awareness spanned countless worlds. The thought made his chest tighten with awe and a sense of responsibility. If he was being observed, perhaps he had a chance not only to return home but to make a difference far beyond anything he had imagined. The first beings approached, moving with silent elegance. Their skin shimmered in colors that shifted like liquid light, and their eyes reflected galaxies in miniature. They moved closer, not threateningly, but with deliberate grace, observing Ethan carefully. One of them extended a hand toward him. Instinctively, Ethan reached out, feeling a gentle, resonant energy course through his arm as their fingers met. It was not painful. It was as if the contact conveyed understanding rather than force. Liara's voice explained, "They can sense character, Ethan. They perceive your choices and intentions. They are not merely observing. They are learning, assessing, and teaching in return." Ethan nodded, a quiet sense of respect forming within him. He realized that this place, the Celestial Haven, was unlike any environment he had ever encountered. It was alive in a way that defied conventional understanding. Every surface, every shimmer of light seemed purposeful, responding to their presence as though the chamber itself was aware. "So, what do we do now?" he asked. Liara's gaze turned to a pathway that had appeared in the soft glowing floor. It was lined with light panels that shifted as if breathing, forming patterns that hinted at direction. "We follow them," she said. "They will guide us to what we must learn." The pathway led them through corridors of crystalline structures that reflected light in infinite combinations. Ethan felt as though he were walking through the stars themselves, suspended in a dreamlike space. Occasionally, the beings would guide them to small alcoves or observation areas, where pools of liquid light displayed visions from countless worlds and civilizations. Ethan watched in awe as images of alien landscapes, thriving cities, and vast oceans floated in the pools, each scene alive with motion and color. Liara explained, "These are glimpses of knowledge, history, and experience preserved by the Celestial Haven. It shows us what civilizations achieve when courage and creativity guide their choices." Despite the wonder, Ethan could not shake the question that pressed on his mind. Why him? Why would this sanctuary, so vast and incomprehensible, choose a single human to evaluate? Liara's presence was reassuring. "You were chosen because of your instinctive courage," she said. "You acted without hesitation to protect another, not for glory, reward, or recognition. That is a trait the Haven values above all. It sees beyond skill or strength. It recognizes the spirit of action, and your spirit is rare." Their journey continued deeper into the sanctuary. They entered a vast chamber where the light seemed to bend and twist, forming paths that shifted as they moved. The beings motioned toward a section of the chamber where an array of floating shapes rotated slowly, glowing with soft energy. Liara explained, "This is your first challenge. Not to harm or compete, but to understand. The Celestial Haven tests perception, adaptability, and empathy. Watch carefully, think creatively, and act wisely." Ethan stepped forward cautiously. As he approached the shapes, they began to respond to his presence. Some expanded, some contracted, and some merged with others. It was as if the objects were alive, communicating in a language of movement and light. Ethan realized that brute force or haste would achieve nothing. He paused, observing patterns, noticing the rhythm of changes, and gradually reached out to interact with them. His fingers brushed against one glowing shape, and it split into smaller components, each aligning with another piece in a delicate balance. Slowly, with careful movements guided by observation and intuition, the floating shapes formed intricate patterns that radiated harmonious energy throughout the chamber. The alien beings observed silently, their presence filled with subtle approval. Liara's voice whispered in his mind, "You are learning the ways of the Haven. It responds to intention as much as action." Ethan felt a quiet pride mixed with humility. The trial was not about speed or strength, but awareness and understanding. He realized that his human experience, solving problems, adapting to unexpected situations, and thinking creatively under pressure, was uniquely valuable here. Even in a place as advanced and mysterious as the Celestial Haven, human qualities mattered. As they moved further, the challenges became more complex. In one corridor, shadows formed illusions that reflected their fears and doubts. Ethan saw visions of failure, moments where his decisions had led to mistakes, and the faces of people he had unintentionally disappointed. The illusions were vivid, designed to test emotional strength. Liara guided him, whispering encouragement through their telepathic link. "Acknowledge the fears, Ethan. Do not let them define you. Your choices are what matter, not your doubts." He took a deep breath, allowing himself to observe each illusion without judgment. Slowly, the shadows dissolved, replaced by radiant light that filled the corridor, signaling their passage. In another chamber, Ethan and Liara faced a simulation of a collapsing environment. Where elements of a fictional city teetered on the edge of disaster, they had to coordinate, communicate, and make rapid decisions to prevent chaos. Ethan's engineering mind kicked in, analyzing potential solutions and improvising with the resources provided. Liara complimented him, using her telepathy to anticipate movements and outcomes. Together, they stabilized the simulation, not by brute force but through collaboration and understanding. Ethan felt a profound realization. Human intuition and problem-solving combined with Liara's unique abilities created a synergy that even the most advanced sanctuary could not predict. By the end of the day, Ethan felt exhausted yet invigorated. Each trial, each interaction had revealed new layers of capability within him. He understood that the Celestial Haven was not just testing physical or mental skill, it was shaping perspective, teaching patience, trust, and awareness. Liara's presence remained a constant comfort. She often placed a hand on his arm, her glow radiating reassurance. "You are remarkable," she said simply, her voice echoing in his mind. "The Haven sees it, and I see it too." Ethan shook his head with a smile. "I'm just trying to do what's right. I never expected any of this." As night approached, or what felt like night in this timeless sanctuary, Ethan found a quiet alcove where the light was softer and the energy calm. He sat down, feeling the weight of the day's experiences settle in his mind and body. Liara joined him, sitting gracefully beside him, her gaze distant yet attentive. "Do you think we'll ever return to Xylaris?" he asked quietly. She considered the question, her glow pulsing gently. "Perhaps. The Haven will decide when you have learned what is necessary. But wherever we go, the lessons here will remain with us. Courage, creativity, empathy. These are not limited to one place or one species." Ethan nodded, reflecting on the journey so far. The explosion, the instinctive act of shielding Liara, and the sanctuary's mysterious intervention had set him on a path he could never have imagined. He realized that his life had changed forever, not through choice but through action, and for the first time, he truly understood the depth of what it meant to act selflessly, to trust intuition, and to embrace uncertainty with determination. As he closed his eyes to rest, Ethan felt a quiet excitement for what lay ahead. The challenges of the Celestial Haven were far from over. He would face more trials, uncover more mysteries, and perhaps discover more about what it truly meant to be human. Liara's presence beside him was both comforting and inspiring. Together, they would navigate the sanctuary's tests, learning and growing in ways that neither could have predicted. And somewhere deep within, Ethan felt a spark of confidence, a quiet acknowledgement that no matter how alien or strange the path became, human courage, creativity, and compassion were qualities that could shine in any world, even one beyond imagination. The next day, Ethan woke with a sense of anticipation he had never known before. The Celestial Haven, with all its luminous corridors and ever-shifting halls, seemed almost alive in a more purposeful way than before. Light pulsed softly along the walls as if to greet him, and a gentle hum resonated beneath his feet, echoing in the quiet spaces. Liara was already awake, her glowing form seated beside a pool of liquid light that reflected stars and distant worlds. She turned toward him with a warm, encouraging smile. "Today is the day you face the heart of the trials," she said through their telepathic link. "You will see the full scope of the challenges and how far your spirit can reach." Ethan stood, feeling the energy of the sanctuary wrap around him like a calm current. "I'm ready," he said, though a part of him wondered if he truly understood what lay ahead. Liara's glow brightened slightly and she extended her hand. "We face them together," she said. Hand in hand, they followed the path that appeared in the softly glowing floor, the light guiding them toward an immense chamber at the center of the sanctuary. The ceiling arched high above them, stretching beyond comprehension, and the walls glimmered with shifting constellations that seemed to move in response to their presence. It was breathtaking, and Ethan could not help but feel a mixture of awe and humility. At the center of the chamber, the alien beings waited. They formed a semicircle, their bodies shimmering with countless hues, and their eyes reflected knowledge and wisdom that spanned millennia. One of them, taller than the rest and radiating a gentle light, stepped forward. Ethan felt the air around him vibrate with quiet energy. Liara's voice explained, "This is the Keeper. It oversees the trials and guides those who seek understanding. It will reveal the challenges that will test not only your mind and courage but also your heart." Ethan nodded, feeling a weight settle on his shoulders. He was ready to continue, but he could not deny the nervous flutter in his chest. The Keeper spoke, though no sound came from its lips. Instead, the message entered Ethan's mind as a calm, resonant thought. The path ahead is a reflection of your choices, your understanding, and your willingness to act for the greater good. Only those who embrace their strengths and acknowledge their weaknesses will succeed. Ethan absorbed the words, feeling the sanctuary's presence keenly. He glanced at Liara, whose glow pulsed softly in encouragement. "We'll do this together," she whispered. Ethan squeezed her hand and nodded, his determination solidifying. The first trial began immediately. The floor beneath them shifted into a platform suspended in space, stars stretching infinitely in every direction. Before them appeared floating geometric structures, rotating and changing colors in patterns that seemed to defy logic. Ethan realized that brute strength or speed would not help here. He had to observe, interpret, and respond with patience. As he reached out to touch one of the structures, it split into smaller shapes, each interacting with others in complex patterns. Slowly, Ethan began to notice subtle connections, how one shape influenced another, and how timing and careful placement could bring harmony to the chaotic movement. Liara guided him telepathically, offering insights from her own perception while allowing Ethan's instincts and creativity to lead. Together they aligned the shapes, creating a luminous pattern that radiated balance and symmetry. The chamber pulsed with approval, signaling their success. Ethan felt a surge of pride, realizing that even in an alien environment, human ingenuity could find its place. Next, they entered a corridor where the walls reflected their deepest thoughts and fears. Shadows of doubt appeared as Ethan glimpsed moments from his past, times he had hesitated, failed, or been unsure of his choices. The illusions were vivid, almost tangible, and for a moment he felt overwhelmed. Liara placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "You must acknowledge these fears without letting them control you," she said. Ethan took a deep breath, focusing on the lessons each memory offered rather than the guilt or regret. Slowly, the shadows softened, transforming into radiant light that revealed the path forward. He realized that acknowledging one's fears and learning from them was just as important as acting courageously in the moment. It was a lesson that even the most advanced technology or beings could not teach. Only experience could. Their third challenge required collaboration and empathy. A simulation of a planetary system appeared, with an unstable environment threatening the survival of a population within it. Ethan and Liara had to coordinate quickly, analyzing the situation and making decisions that would stabilize the environment. Ethan's engineering mind worked rapidly, calculating energy flows and predicting outcomes, while Liara's telepathy allowed her to sense subtle changes and anticipate consequences he might have missed. Together, they guided the simulation to a stable state, not through force but through understanding, adaptability, and mutual trust. Ethan realized that human abilities, logic, intuition, creativity, and emotional insight were uniquely valuable in ways even the sanctuary could not fully predict. As they moved deeper into the trials, the challenges became more abstract. One chamber presented a series of doors, each representing a potential decision, a moral choice, or a path in life. Choosing incorrectly would not harm them physically, but it would lead to detours, requiring them to reflect and reconsider. Ethan noticed that his choices were guided not by fear or selfishness, but by a desire to protect, understand, and learn. Liara's presence beside him reinforced his confidence. Each correct choice caused the sanctuary to respond positively, the walls and floor glowing brighter, and the air vibrating with subtle energy. Each mistake created patterns of reflection, encouraging him to pause, think, and approach the problem from a new perspective. It was a reminder that growth often comes from both success and failure. After hours of trials, Ethan and Liara reached a chamber filled with pools of liquid light. In each pool, they could see visions of civilizations across galaxies, their histories, successes, and failures. The keeper explained telepathically, "Observe and learn. The patterns of life and survival are universal, and understanding these connections is essential." Ethan knelt beside one pool, watching as a civilization faced a catastrophic energy imbalance, much like the situation he had experienced on Xylaris. He saw how collaboration, ingenuity, and compassion saved them from collapse. The lesson was clear. The same principles that guided humans, the courage to act, the creativity to solve problems, and the empathy to care for others, were universal strengths. Liara observed him quietly, proud of his insight. "You understand," she whispered. "You see how your actions resonate beyond immediate circumstances." Ethan spent time absorbing the lessons, feeling his understanding of courage, ingenuity, and empathy deepen. He realized that the sanctuary's trials were not about testing his strength, but about revealing the potential within him and humans like him. Each challenge reinforced a truth he had always believed, but never fully embraced. Human qualities, even simple acts of selflessness and creative problem-solving, held incredible value. And when combined with trust, collaboration, and empathy, those qualities could shape outcomes far beyond what one person could imagine. As the day drew to a close, Ethan and Liara returned to a quiet alcove within the sanctuary. The soft glow of light surrounded them, creating a serene space for reflection. Ethan sank to the floor, exhausted but exhilarated. "I didn't expect any of this," he said softly, his voice filled with wonder. "I thought I was just lucky to survive the explosion, and now, this place, these trials, it's all more than I could imagine." Liara sat beside him, her glow comforting. "It is not luck, Ethan," she said. "It is your courage, your willingness to act selflessly, your creativity, and your empathy that brought you here. The Haven recognizes these qualities and tests them so that you may grow, and in doing so demonstrate the value of humanity." Ethan reflected on her words, feeling a deep sense of purpose settling within him. He had faced challenges that defied comprehension, yet he had persevered through observation, intuition, and collaboration. He realized that human abilities, adaptability, courage, empathy, and creative thinking were strengths that could shine even in the most alien of circumstances. Liara's presence reminded him that trust and collaboration amplified those strengths, creating outcomes neither could achieve alone. As the soft ambient light dimmed to signal rest, Ethan allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought of Xylaris, of the explosion, and of the lives he had touched simply by choosing to act. He understood now that courage was not measured solely by survival, but by the willingness to act with integrity, empathy, and creativity. The sanctuary had shown him that human potential extended far beyond what he had imagined, and that even in the vastness of the universe, those qualities could make Liara leaned closer, her glow warm and reassuring. "Tomorrow will bring the final phase of the trials," she said. "It will challenge not only your mind and heart, but the bond between us. Are you ready?" Ethan nodded, feeling a quiet confidence settle over him. "I am," he said. "I've learned a lot, and I'm ready to face whatever comes next. Together." Her glow brightened in response, and for the first time since the explosion, Ethan felt a profound sense of hope. The trials of the Celestial Haven were shaping him into something EO. Ethan awoke with a deep sense of anticipation. Today felt different, charged with a quiet intensity that pulsed through the luminous halls of the celestial haven. The soft glow of light along the walls seemed brighter, warmer, almost as if the sanctuary itself was aware that he and Liara were ready for the final phase of the trials. They rose together, walking hand in hand through corridors that had become both familiar and wondrous, the soft hum of energy beneath their feet providing a rhythm to their steps. Ethan felt a strange mixture of confidence and nervous excitement. He had grown so much in understanding, courage, and patience, yet he knew that the ultimate test awaited him. The Keeper awaited them at the center of the main chamber, its presence calm yet imposing in the quiet vastness. The air shimmered as it communicated telepathically, its voice resonating within their minds. The final trial will test not only your knowledge and courage but also your ability to inspire, lead, and unify. You will face choices that ripple beyond yourself. Your actions will reflect the potential of your species. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle over him. Liara's glow radiated warmth, a quiet assurance that they would face this together. "We've come this far," she said, her thoughts echoing in his mind. "Whatever happens, we will face it side by side." The chamber shifted around them, walls melting into a starlit expanse that stretched infinitely. Floating islands of crystalline light appeared, each representing a scenario, a challenge, or a possibility. Ethan understood that this was no ordinary simulation. It was a test of vision, creativity, empathy, and leadership. He took a deep breath, recalling every lesson he had learned in the sanctuary. Observation, intuition, patience, collaboration, and the courage to act selflessly. He realized that all of these qualities would be necessary to navigate this final trial. The first scenario revealed itself as a planet facing environmental collapse. Its core was unstable, its inhabitants struggling to maintain balance. Ethan and Liara approached the simulation, analyzing the situation. Drawing upon his engineering skills, Ethan identified patterns of energy flow, possible solutions, and strategies to stabilize the environment. Liara added her telepathic insight, sensing the needs and fears of the inhabitants within the simulation. Together, they devised a plan that required careful timing, creativity, and adaptability. They implemented their solution, and the planet's system stabilized, glowing with vibrant light. The Keeper observed silently, its presence acknowledging their success without need for words. Ethan realized that even in a simulated environment, human creativity, courage, and cooperation could achieve extraordinary outcomes. The second scenario challenged their empathy and emotional intelligence. A community of beings appeared, facing dilemmas that required understanding, compromise, and moral insight. Ethan and Liara were tasked with guiding them to peaceful solutions without imposing their own judgments. The simulation reflected every decision they made, showing consequences and ripple effects. Ethan paused frequently, considering each choice carefully, weighing the needs of the many against the needs of the few. Liara guided him telepathically, offering subtle impressions of emotions and intentions. Through patience, careful observation, and mutual respect, they guided the community to harmonious solutions, resolving conflicts while preserving dignity and autonomy. Ethan realized that leadership was not about dominance or power. It was about understanding, guiding, and empowering others to find their own strength. The final scenario was the most complex. It combined elements of logic, creativity, courage, and empathy in a challenge that required vision and adaptability. A civilization faced multiple crises simultaneously: energy instability, social unrest, and environmental hazards. Ethan and Liara were required to coordinate resources, inspire confidence, and implement creative solutions that harmonized all aspects of the simulation. Ethan's mind raced, calculating possibilities, improvising strategies, and anticipating outcomes. Liara's telepathic guidance allowed them to respond with synchronicity, their actions flowing in seamless cooperation. Slowly, carefully, they implemented solutions that balanced the technological, social, and emotional needs of the civilization. As the simulation stabilized, light poured through the chamber, bright and radiant, signaling their success. Ethan felt a profound sense of fulfillment, not from victory, but from understanding the depth of what they had accomplished. The Keeper's presence radiated approval, and the other beings observed quietly, as if absorbing the significance of human potential. Liara turned to him, her glow vibrant with pride. "You have done it," she said. "You have proven that courage, creativity, empathy, and collaboration can shape not just outcomes, but possibilities beyond imagination." Ethan smiled, feeling a sense of connection not only to Liara but to the sanctuary, to the beings who had guided them, and to the broader universe. He realized that humans, even with their flaws and limitations, possessed qualities that could inspire, create, and transform in ways that transcended species or technology. As the chamber shifted once more, they found themselves standing on a platform overlooking a vision of Xylaris. The orbital city was intact, its structures shimmering in the glow of the sun and the light of distant stars. Ethan recognized the areas he had worked on, the energy conduits, the observation decks, and the central hub. It was a reminder of where he had come from, and what he had risked to protect the city. Liara placed a hand on his shoulder. "You will return," she said, her telepathic voice carrying reassurance. "But you return not merely as a survivor, but as a representative of humanity's courage and ingenuity. The Haven has granted you knowledge, insight, and perspective that can help protect your world and others." Ethan felt a quiet pride mixed with humility. The trials had tested him in ways he had never imagined, revealing strengths, insights, and potential that he had not fully recognized. He understood now that heroism was not about seeking recognition or glory. It was about acting with courage, creativity, empathy, and integrity when it mattered most. And he realized that human qualities, adaptability, ingenuity, determination, and compassion were not only valuable but essential, even in a universe filled with advanced civilizations and infinite possibilities. Before returning to Xylaris, the Keeper communicated one final message. "Your actions reflect the potential of your species. Go forth with courage and creativity, inspire collaboration, and demonstrate empathy. Humanity's place among the stars is bright, and its contributions are profound." Ethan absorbed the words, feeling their weight and their truth. Liara squeezed his hand gently, sharing in the moment of understanding. "We are ready," she said. "Together we can bring this knowledge back to our worlds." The chamber dissolved around them, replaced by the familiar corridors of Xylaris. Ethan's heart leapt as he recognized the metallic floors, the hum of machinery, and the subtle vibration of energy through the city. Yet he could sense the difference. The city felt both familiar and renewed, as if his understanding of it and of humanity's potential had transformed not only him, but the environment itself. Liara walked beside him, radiant and composed, and together they approached the central hub, where the city's inhabitants were working to stabilize minor aftereffects from the previous explosion. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. Drawing on what he had learned in the sanctuary, he assessed the situation, identified potential solutions, and implemented a plan that stabilized energy flows and improved efficiency. Residents paused to watch, some in awe, others with quiet curiosity. Liara stood beside him, her presence both reassuring and inspiring. Slowly, people began to understand that a combination of human creativity, courage, and insight could achieve remarkable outcomes, even in partnership with advanced alien technology. Over the next hours, Ethan worked alongside the city's engineers, technicians, and representatives from alien civilizations, implementing solutions and sharing knowledge he had gained from the Celestial Haven. He realized that courage was contagious, creativity could inspire collaboration, and empathy strengthened connections across differences. Liara watched with pride, understanding that the human he had saved, and who had risked everything for her, was now demonstrating the very qualities that the sanctuary had recognized and valued. As the day came to a close, Ethan and Liara stood together on the observation deck of Xylaris. The stars stretched endlessly above them, brighter than he had ever seen, reflecting the vast potential of the universe and the remarkable role humanity could play within it. Ethan felt a sense of fulfillment and purpose he had never known. He had faced challenges that tested mind, heart, and spirit. He had grown through courage, empathy, creativity, and collaboration. And he had returned not only alive but transformed, ready to face whatever future awaited him. Liara's glow shimmered beside him as she spoke in his mind. "You have proven that humans, through courage and ingenuity, can rise to any challenge. You have shown the value of selflessness, the power of collaboration, and the beauty of empathy. These qualities will guide you and others wherever you go." Ethan smiled, feeling gratitude, wonder, and determination. I understand, he replied. And I will continue to act with courage, creativity, and care. Not just for myself, but for everyone I